Hi everybody and welcome to Different Leaf, a show for new and experienced cannabis consumers. I'm Brit Smith. This episode, we're getting the lowdown on the best places to go to experience marijuana at retreats, spas, restaurants, festivals, lounges, and more. A little later in the show, we'll be chatting with Brian Applegarth, founder of Cannabis Travel Association International, to talk about some of the top places to go out west if you want to try cannabis in spas and wellness centers and even at state fairs. But first, we're checking in with April and Bobby Black from Higher Way Travel Agency to talk about the growing trend of curated cannabis vacation experiences, from high yoga retreats in Jamaica and Hawaii to tree bathing in California's Redwood Forests. If you've got the summer issue of Different Leaf the magazine, you can read up on why cannabis is the hot new travel trend on page 40. If you haven't yet got your copy, head on over to differentleaf.com to buy any issue or to find the nearest place selling Different Leaf the magazine in person. That's differentleaf.com. And we'll be back after this quick break with April and Bobby Black. Where are you guys?
We're in California. We're like 3 hours south of San Francisco in a little town called Paso Robles.
Central Coast area.
What were you guys doing before you got into the cannabis travel industry? April, what were you doing?
I was a yoga teacher at a golf resort in Scottsdale, Arizona. So I was in the hospitality industry already. I had been enjoying cannabis since I was 14. So I always have smoked along the way. And I went to yoga school to become a yoga teacher. And so that's what I was doing.
And how about you, Bobby? What were you doing before this?
I worked at High Times Magazine for over 20 years. I started smoking when I was like 11 or 12. I started working at High Times in college as an intern, and then I just never left. I ended up working there for 21 years, kind of worked my way up the ladder, whatnot, did a lot of different roles and jobs and stuff, helped launch the Cannabis Cups here in the US, worked at all the Cannabis Cups in Amsterdam, and basically writing, designing, doing all kinds of stuff for High Times. And it was through the Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam that I ended up meeting April.
What year was it that you guys were over there and you met?
That was 2006.
What was the culture like over there when you were there? There were the cannabis cafes?
Yeah, the cafes were there, lots of coffee shops. And I went with my friends who have a company, and it was just a jar company at the time, and they were selected to be the official stash jar of the High Times Cannabis Cup. And so we all lived in Arizona, and they said, April, would you like to come? They had rented a house, and the house was for 420 travelers. There was bongs there, pipes there, people who left their stash there because they were getting ready to fly out that morning. There was a guest book, and that was my first cannabis tourism experience.
Wow. So it was almost curated for you. Sort of everything was left at this house for you. Did you go to the High Times Cup?
Yes, I did. I went to the Cup, and then that last day I went there and I met Bobby.
I'm sure you've seen a lot change since those days back in the late 90s, early 2000s for folks that would travel to Amsterdam for that cannabis culture. So there's really been a growing demand over the last 5 to 10 years for people to start to travel to go and experience cannabis cultures where they are.
Yeah, people want to go. They want to have access to things that the general public doesn't usually get access to, like grows and just different places that aren't something that you can just book online, meeting different people, going to different gardens. And just my experience being events director and the activities director and a yoga teacher in the resort capacity is that I carry that over to my events that I have, what we're having in Hawaii or Baked on the Beach that we've had in Jamaica and stuff. So like I'm there doing my activities plus taking people out and about to check out all these awesome local attractions, cultural attractions, taking it with the locals and going to different cannabis gardens. We've been traveling where we want to smoke weed and can't find any herb, and that's really hard, or you're not afraid to bring your own, or you bring yours and you smoke in the hotel room and then you get fined, and all that stuff is no fun.
There's sort of a lot of red tape to go around if you want to go somewhere new and find cannabis safely, enjoy cannabis safely and legally, and know the right people to be able to have that experience.
Yes.
Let's talk about what you've seen pre and post pandemic. What kind of changes there have been? Do people want to do different events? Are they interested in different activities?
It seems like the events are coming fast and furious, and people just want to gather. They want to hang out, and there's almost like overwhelming amount of events where people maybe, have to really pick and choose which ones they want to go to. And now with gas being so crazy high, I think that is also helping to make people make those decisions. Like, oh, I can go to this event in SoCal or have to drive for 2 hours versus this other thing that's happening in San Francisco or something that they have to fly to.
Yeah, I did not even think about that. That's so true. The gas prices are really going to change how people travel this summer, huh?
Oh, yeah. It's starting now. A couple weeks ago, people were just excited it was summer. Kids were getting out of school and everything. But it's here.
So where do you tend to see people wanting to travel to when they're coming to you and sort of asking for like a curated experience? Where do they want to go and what do they want to do?
People want to go to Jamaica and they just want to relax and be able to smoke wherever they want and have access to herb immediately. That's what people want to do. They always ask me, well, can I get weed? Can I get my herb? Yeah, of course you can. Sometimes I can arrange it where there's joints waiting for them in their airport pickup.
Is that legal? Pretty safe to do that? Though?
Yeah, it's not really legal so much to smoke in the van, but you can have a pickup pull over somewhere pretty and you can have a few tokes, stop off, grab a beer, have a couple tokes, continue on your way to your resort.
Where else do folks like to go other than Jamaica?
I have a lot of people calling me from like the Southeast United States and they want to come to California.
Yeah, I bet they do. Yeah, there's a lot up there in the Emerald Triangle up in the Humboldt, Mendocino, Trinity counties.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, gorgeous out there. What sort of stuff do you do up there when you lead retreats?
So we tend to do like health-centered retreats. So it involves yoga, involves like rafting down the river, organic foods, meals are included, as much herb as you can smoke. We make tie-dyes and we had an essential oil workshop. Sometimes kind of do some like earth-centered things because I'm really into gardening and medicinal plants. So I have composting workshops. I think those are pretty interesting. An event I was working on was having a kombucha bar.
Oh, nice.
So different flavors of kombuchas and then different elixirs that you could put in there and different herbs and different concoctions. So if you just wanted to make like a CBD elixir drink, you could, or if you wanted to have a little THC in there, you could do that too. Put flowers in your beverages and just make some really nice, beautiful botanical bevies. And
arts and crafts.
Yeah, arts and crafts, of course. I was doing like these sun catchers.
Oh, nice.
With these crystals on there. So people putting those in their windows or in their gardens. So those are some of the things that happen at those super laid back retreats.
We also have a couple of friends who are our travel partners up there that do Mendocino cannabis tours, Humboldt cannabis tours. So if we have travelers that want to go up there, we're not necessarily going to be able to go up and lead them on something, but we have, again, relationships, partners in place where we know we could send people to these tour guides, these business owners.
And they can go to
gardens, treated well and get garden tours.
They can go, if they can go and have like a nice, beautiful garden tour and then maybe lunch in the redwoods.
Oh my gosh, that sounds gorgeous. The redwoods are stunning. Imagine being just a little bit high and staring up at those redwoods.
Oh, it's an emotional
You don't have to imagine, we've done it.
But no, it's an emotional experience when you are standing at the base of those giant trees and you're looking this like a teeny tiny little speck and you're by this like thousands old tree. So it's a humbling experience.
Just the sound, it's so quiet and peaceful. I mean, there's little trickles of water or birds or things like that, but it's so peaceful. It completely changes your internal chemistry, your mindset, and a little weed or possibly some other plant medicines, if you're so inclined, may really make the experience unbelievable. It's such a nice way to unplug and disconnect from all the electronic and insanity that's going on in the media and politics and everything else, to just get out there and just, what do they call it? Tree bathing.
Yeah. I love that.
Some people use. So we don't necessarily use it, but it's a fun way of describing it. Tree bathing, just letting it all, the breeze and the aromas of the trees and the plants. It's beautiful.
Let's talk finally about some of your favorite places to visit, some places that you might recommend that folks can maybe drive to and enjoy, if not with you or with their own cannabis community, maybe by themselves, or family places to go, something for couples? What do you guys enjoy doing? What's good?
I'm a road tripper. So, I'm from Arizona. So I love going from Phoenix to Sedona. And Arizona is a legal state. So if you do happen to find yourself in Arizona, maybe not in the summer, it's so hot, I do recommend driving up to Sedona and checking out a lot of the ancient ruins out there and going hiking. I really love, we were talking about the redwoods and stuff. I like Southern Humboldt a whole bunch. And you can go to the ocean, and you can hang out on the Lost Coast, as they call it. And then you can go and just go in through some of these old growth Redwood Forests. I think those are spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
On the East Coast, though, there's some stuff going on in Maine. There's a campground called Laughing Grass Campground, and it's a full-on cannabis campground. And this gal Trinity runs it, and she's awesome. And she's like me, four stoners, five stoners, four stoners, I should say.
Yeah, we've actually got an episode with Trinity coming out during this summer season. Getting your camp on when you're high is so nice. Like just staring up at the stars, enjoying a fire with some friends, listening to some music.
Yeah. So that's something you can do. And I know that you guys out there in Mass, you guys have a whole bunch of cool stuff going on.
Anywhere that's favorite of yours, Bobby?
For me, I would have to say Europe. I love Amsterdam is pretty much a home away from home for me at this point. I know the city so well, the restaurants, I have friends there. Everything's just great. Barcelona is one of our favorite destinations. Beautiful city, wonderful food, cannabis clubs.
Great hash.
We've been to Barcelona several times. Would love to go back there. So I'm hoping and waiting till hopefully next year. I think we've talked about, we have a few European group travel packages that we've been working on for a while that we were getting ready to launch before COVID hit. So we're hoping this year it's not going to work, but for next year, we're hoping maybe we can do our Barcelona and or Amsterdam package next year. So I'm excited to go back to Europe.
And Oregon, driving and road trip worthy. I think driving up the coast of Oregon is gorgeous. It's rugged. Hotel rooms are pretty inexpensive. Of course, there's rec weed all over the place. And mushrooms are plentiful.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Funky place. I love Oregon so much. So I think Oregon, the whole Pacific Northwest is gorgeous. Hey, if you have time, fly up to Seattle and then drive all the way down to San Diego.
Oh my gosh, that's a gorgeous, gorgeous road trip.
It's a long trip, but it's a beautiful trip.
Because then you can drive up it, but it's prettier. You're closer to the ocean and the edge. You're driving down.
Yeah.
We did a Pacific Coast drive together. We didn't do quite that whole distance. We did from LA up to Portland once. What did we take, a week to do it? It was an amazing trip.
And you just find incredible dispensaries and stores along the way that you can stop. And
random little spots where you wouldn't even expect it, but you see the green cross and you're like, hey, there's our people. Let's get a read.
I did that while driving from San Francisco to Boston. It was 2017 and I had just graduated out in San Francisco and my husband had gotten into a college here in Boston. And so we bought an RV and we ripped the whole inside of it out and we sort of decked it out and stuffed everything we owned in that RV. And we went down to San Diego, said goodbye to a few friends there. And then we made our way sort of across and we went through like Utah and we went through Colorado. And whenever we went through a legal state, we'd stop just like that and like see the green cross signs along the way. And we'd stop and there was some amazing places in these little towns in Colorado, like these little old mining towns. They had such great dispensaries. The edibles there were very, very different to what we'd seen in California. It was like the local food was infused there, and it was different to California, local infused. And when I got out to the East Coast, it's like there's infused taffy out here. And
I love it.
Definitely having a little road trip and just sort of finding some good local dispensaries is a really nice way to enjoy traveling and cannabis as well.
Is there infused maple candy out there?
Oh, yeah. You know it.
In
Vermont. Oh my gosh, everywhere.
Cool.
Yeah.
We've driven cross country together twice. First when she moved in with me and then when we moved to California. So it's always an adventure. The first time we took a little more time to stop and see sights. The second time it was more of a straight run, but you always have time to stop even for those little cheesy little roadside attractions, which can always be fun. Just say world's largest rocking chair or whatever. It's fun.
Yeah, America's a big place with a lot of stuff to see. And if you can take a few gummies with you, then more power to you, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, so nice to meet you both. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
It's been great.
Next up, we're talking to Brian Applegarth from Cannabis Travel Association International to hear more about traveling the West Coast for the best weed-laden experiences like infused dining, spas, festivals, and more. How did you get into cannabis travel exactly?
I really grew up with a love for travel because my family and my parents really valued that. And I remember from a young age, the phrase that travel is the best education you can get. So it was kind of a mantra in my family growing up. And in 2013 actually, when I kind of returned home to California, I walked into a cannabis shop for the first time. I had no idea that they existed. And that was very eye-opening because it became very obvious to me that this frontier of cannabis as a visitor experience was already happening medically, and it was headed toward this leisure recreational role in the future. I didn't know exactly how long that would take, but that was really the moment where it was obvious that the cannabis travel trend was going to surface sometime in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to pick your brain. It looks like more folks have become cannabis associated over the pandemic, and now that it's slowing down a little bit, folks really want to get out and travel.
Yep.
Where are you seeing people want to go at the moment?
Yeah, California ranks pretty high. California, Colorado, some of the states you would expect, the ones that were early to kind of medical legalization. So you see some of these more mature cannabis markets that have the attention. Also, Las Vegas ranked really high, not surprisingly, because Las Vegas, the nature of what it is.
There is a huge future to the cannabis travel industry, and there's going to be so many different facets of it based on sort of local economies. But when it comes to the tourism industry leaders who are integrating cannabis into their business strategies already, what sort of places are you seeing? Are there spas, infused dining experiences becoming more popular? What else is out there right now?
Yeah, I mean, we can tackle each category. With spas, you have a lot of spas that are lightly integrating CBD, mostly because CBD is this pop culture trend at the moment. That being said, the more sophisticated mainstream spas are using broad spectrum CBD products, which basically is a more wide range of holistic medicine without THC or with very, very trace amounts of THC, and typically THCA, which is a totally different therapeutic molecule than activated, heated up THC, which has that altering effect, which goes to the complexity.
Right. This one wouldn't get you high.
Right. But in spas, you're seeing mainstream, mostly it's hemp CBD. It's either isolate CBD. The studies are showing is a bit less efficacious. It's also more targeted, but broad spectrum CBD is also being integrated. And then you have some cannabis spas. There's one up in Humboldt County that's called Papa and Barkley Social. And it's actually a full spa experience. So when you come into the spa, they greet you with a hot towel, like in Japan, wipe your face, your hands. You can do some shopping in their boutique little shopping area. They have books and hats and t-shirts. And then you spill into the retail shop where it's beautifully designed, and you have this conversation with one of the highly educated bud tenders there. And then you go back to this area where they have separate curtained off areas to get a CBD massage or get a THC rich massage, you know, topical application, full spectrum, THC, THCA included, which is the most holistic version of that cannabis plant. And then they also have an outdoor lounge with fire pits, and they bring in food trucks. You can go hang out outside after and imbibe further if you'd like to. And I think that's the most kind of sophisticated cannabis lounge that I've seen that's really starting to iterate this model and do some really exciting things.
Wow, that sounds super
Is
chill.
that cool?
I will definitely make a trip out to California for something like that for sure. Yeah.
So then moving on to the restaurants and the incorporation of this in private dining experiences, really interesting. There's so many different types of cannabis infused, quote unquote, versions of these dining experiences. And it's everything from sitting down with an award-winning chef and then having a herb or a cannabis sommelier walk you through smelling cannabis flowers and pairing that with wine. So
Where can I do that?
the Northern California is where this one was that I did.
Wow.
And then, of course, they have their dishes too, where they tie in the food. And typically those dishes have a raw cannabis leaf that's like resting there on the side, or perhaps hemp seeds that are peppered in. So you start learning from nutrition to smelling cannabis and tasting wine, or smelling cannabis and then eating food, to actually infusing it with like raw plant cannabis, where it's like not altering or psychoactive. Then there's the cannabis infused meal where you have like this cannabis infused olive oil that's been activated
Yeah.
And it goes on. Like the cannabis in cuisine is fascinating. And that really, manifests in shops and lounges with these kind of edible components over the shelf.
Wow, there's so much to go through with just the dining experiences. I mean, if you're a foodie, which I think probably a lot of those cannabis interested travelers probably are, then pairing your love of food and wine with your love of cannabis, that sounds amazing. I would love, love, love to do a tour of Northern California for sure.
We discovered how this audience, this cannabis motivated travel audience, self-describes. And some of the self-descriptions that were very interesting were that the cannabis motivated leisure travel audience actually self-describes as wine enthusiasts to a higher degree than the average active leisure traveler.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. And they also self-describe as foodies to a higher degree. And they also like craft beer to a higher degree. So really the correlation that I started seeing was, this is like the 20%-ish of Americans in the beginning of 2020. So 18% that when they go on vacation, they're like, I'm on vacation. I'm going to indulge. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have great food, decadent food, probably going to splurge for dessert, probably going to get a nice bottle of wine, might have a little herb before I go to bed. I'm going to probably have a craft beer with lunch next. I mean, it's people that enjoy imbibing and having fun while they're on vacation in that way. And that's what they desire. We also saw a lot of self-descriptions about nature, right? So like this audience really loves outdoor adventure and they consider themselves beach bums. So you saw this connection to nature experiences, which is not surprising. I wasn't surprised.
Not at all. Those are my kind of people. Absolutely.
Right.
Let's vacation together, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a great place. I mean, Humboldt and Mendocino have that in spades, as does a lot of California. I mean, there's just so much beauty in the West Coast. But yeah, these nature experiences, I believe that the future, you're going to see more and more of cannabis and hemp opening up the discussion around holistic health, specifically spiritual health and balance of mind, body, and spirit, and really kind of coloring in what that means. Of course, it works at the physical and mental level as well. But that spiritual health discussion, I think it's really going to evolve that. And it's going to be exciting.
I was looking through in Different Leaf magazine where you said folks are looking for the kinds of experiences like going to cannabis competitions and cannabis cups and those kinds of events where you can openly use cannabis as long as you're in a legal state. And you can enjoy the cannabis culture and mix it with some music, sort of some music festivals. Like festival hopping is huge in Europe. I used to do that as a teenager. And part of the fun of it was that you could stand in the crowd and smoke weed together and nobody really cared. So those kinds of events seem to still draw the stoner crowd.
Yeah. And that's widening. It is events like traditional consumer events. A famous event is the Emerald Cup in California. It's been going on since 2003. And it was the first cannabis awards and celebrate and county fair style. Of course, this year you have the California State Fair Cannabis Awards that are happening.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. It's an 166-year-old tradition of agriculture in California. And the state of California, the California State Fair, is honoring cannabis cultivators throughout the state this year alongside wine, cheese, craft beer, and olive oil.
Come on, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it's a milestone of normalization is what it is. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's really cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. And on site at the state fair itself this year, there's a 7,500 square foot cannabis exhibition where you can walk through this immersive experience and learn about the cannabis plant, the human biology, the relationship to the plant. There's a whole history of cannabis in California. So we're very excited. We expect about 120 to 140,000 mainstream California State Fair goers to come through there and check out what California cannabis is all about today.
When is that happening? What are the dates?
So it kicks off the 15th of July and it runs through the 31st of July.
Wow.
Yeah.
Going to be an annual thing from now on in case we've missed it this year?
Yep. Sure is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to make a little pilgrimage back to Northern California.
SoCal's got some great history too. The whole state, some really interesting cannabis development and the industry development, the travel and tourism development is happening in Coachella Valley or the greater Palm Springs kind of region, which is out near the desert, about an hour and a half from LA. And there's a cannabis lounge where when you walk in, you got a stage. You've got Frank Sinatra night is next week where they're playing music. You got pool tables. You got stand-up chess. Once you purchase your cannabis, you can sit on any of these different lounge areas and consume it and watch the stage, whoever's performing. They have burlesque up there certain nights. They have open mic nights and songwriter nights up there. They have an arcade that you can cruise into and play video games. They have a whole room full of bongs and glass and all types of like smoking accessories that are for sale. And then in the evenings, they have three different bars. They have a beverage bar for cannabis, a dap bar, and then a flower bar.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. This is California cannabis today. It's wild. It's very different. It's exciting.
That's really different from the East Coast. This is good to know. It's going on. It's popping off over on the West Coast. I'm not surprised at all that it's going on in Palm Springs, which has always been, when I lived in Southern California, the place that we would go to get away and party.
Yeah.
Gay Central.
Yep,
so
totally.
much fun. So much art. There's so much art. Culture out there. I'm not surprised.
Music and color and like life, the nature and the skies are epic out here. Like it's such a cool spot. And then in NorCal, you have San Francisco, which when you're talking about smoking a joint at Pride, it's like San Francisco, it's like been everywhere since like the 1970s, right? So it's embedded in the culture there, really going back to the beatniks, maybe even before that.
Yeah.
But then also in San Francisco today, I mean, you have double-digit lounges. I want to say like 15 to 20 different types of cannabis different lounges that are available. In West Hollywood, you have like 3 lounges that are pretty much open now and about 10 more on the way. Those are in the form of like wellness centers and cafes. This new lounge, the Artistry, just opened up. And they have a service there where they'll roll out this little machine and you can order a pre-roll. And then they pull out one of these Kawari coffee pods and they put it in this joint rolling machine and it rolls you a joint and then it opens up and spits it out and you just pick it up with your hand and light it. So it's like tableside guacamole.
Wow. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Involve more cannabis in more of my everyday things. Like that's exactly what I want.
Yeah. Oakland just launched the Visit Oakland Cannabis Trail, which is a kind of a self-guided cultural trail that's all about the history of cannabis in Oakland. And it kind of spotlights all of the different dispensaries and cannabis shops there today, as well as honors kind of the legacy shops that are still open. And then it takes little restaurants and art kind of experiences and it pairs them up as really good experiences while you're using cannabis in Oakland.
Very cool. Finally, what do you think we're going to see in the future? Do you think that we'll have cannabis cruise lines? What do you think is going to be the most popular new thing to do in the future?
In travel, I believe cannabis and hemp will manifest in the form of well-being. When it comes to human experiences, it's going to be cannabis, but it's also going to be nature. It's going to be what is the setting that you are engaging in with the right mindset, with the right dose of cannabis or the right cultivar of cannabis that will enhance that experience. What makes music more beautiful? What makes food pop off the tongue more when you bite into it and you feel the texture and the flavors? What's going to make me have a more connected experience if I'm in a Redwood Forest? And how does cannabis complement and enhance these experiences? And in the future, in cannabis, we have cannabis sommeliers now called ganjiers. And I believe that in the travel lens and the visitor lens, people are going to be thinking about their vacation experiences and they're going to wonder how can cannabis enhance that destination experience.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for giving us a bit of an insight into traveling and cannabis right now. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
A huge thanks to today's guests, April and Bobby Black from Higher Way Travel Agency and Brian Applegarth from Cannabis Travel Association International. Next week, we'll be joined by leading economists Dr. Robin Goldstein and Professor Daniel Sumner of UC Davis to examine the economics of legal cannabis.
California, for example, says there's no legal cannabis anywhere in the state that you can purchase after 10 p.m. People tell me I wouldn't know, but people tell me that there are a lot of people out after 10 p.m. and some of them, that's a natural time for people to want to buy cannabis. I say, why don't they plan ahead? And Robin shakes his head sadly and says, not everything can be planned ahead.
Yeah.
What does that do if you're a resident of the state? You call the guy who knows a guy and he'll deliver and it's not legal, but okay.
Yeah.
If you're a tourist, you're sort of stuck.
Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you're listening right now, and follow us on social media at Different Leaf and at different_leaf. And I'm on social media at Brit the British. Check us out at differentleaf.com, where you can purchase all the issues of Different Leaf the magazine, including the new summer issue all about cannabis, travel, and tourism. That's differentleaf.com.